Did HBAR partner with BlackRock? Is it all just a ruse? What the heck's happening? Because no matter what the truth is, Bitcoin and altcoins are falling as we are speaking. We're going to address all of the chaos right now. We're also, of course, joined by the great Caleb Franzen today on this Hump Day Wednesday, and he has been getting rid of the haters, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about that. With that said, though, guys, smash the like button because this is the Investing Bros. Let's get it.
Here we are.
What is up, boys? What is up? Caleb, you're running like madman. You were going to be 15 minutes late, but everyone knows being late is Tim's move, so you can't go copying me that much. How are you doing, my friend? And then I'll ask T-Shroom that question as well, but at the moment I care about Caleb. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, guys. I can't remember when I left my house, but I've probably been gone for like 4+ hours, just enjoying the day in Bucharest. We had some rain yesterday and some cold weather the day before, and today was nice. It was in the 70s, so felt like I had to enjoy it and soak it in. I got caught at dinner later than I was expecting. They took forever to bring my dessert. So I thought I was going to be super late, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to call an Uber, and then the guy pulls up in a Tesla, and we just mobbed straight over.
Nice.
Wait, what'd you get for dessert?
So they have something here in Romania. It's a very like traditional dessert. It's called papanaș, and it's kind of like these like fried dough balls, and then it's served with like a sour cream and blueberry sauce, and with some powdered sugar. It's like the most random thing of all time, but it's delicious.
Good.
It's absolutely delicious. That's it. That's papanaș.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
All right. Well, T-Shroom, you thought I left you out there, didn't you? How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing better than I deserve, Tim. I'm doing better than I deserve. I have a question for Caleb, though. Did you use public transit? Or you said there was a Tesla. It was a Tesla project.
Yeah,
Uber.
I was planning on taking public transit at first, and that's why I was going to be 15 minutes late. And I was like, you know what? I cannot let the Investing Bros down. I'm showing up right at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's why we pulled it off.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the guy's just he's out there driving around the streets of Romania just celebrating his vehicle's stock being up 16% today. After a lot of bearishness in the Tesla world, he had to represent the fam very well. We'll probably get into talk a little Tesla with Caleb, of course.
Cool.
We got our stocks extraordinaire here with us as well, but we have some stuff. We're going to get into a lot of stuff. We'll do a market cap open here in just a couple of minutes. We'll get our quote of the day. Don't want to skip that one, T-Shroom, in case you thought I forgot about that one as well. But Caleb, before we get into all the details of the show, have you been tracking the chaos with HBAR and BlackRock that's unfolded now over the last 24 hours?
So I saw the big pop that happened yesterday. It was like a huge move. I think at one point it was up almost like 50%, maybe even slightly more. And I know it's just faded. And I've seen a lot of stuff do similar moves, obviously not news related to BlackRock, but these big pops, we'll see 30 to 50% moves in a couple hours time. It just keeps fading. So I'm not sure exactly all the drama that's going on with HBAR, but I've seen the price action. It's been a disappointment for sure. But par for the course.
Yeah, we'll get you in. We'll fill you in on some details. It has been a roller coaster of emotions for HBAR holders based off of news that came out, and then everyone said that's fake news. But now there's clarification that's like, well, it was half correct. But really, we're going to break down in the show. Hopefully, T-Shroom and I don't know what, but I'll contribute. T-Shroom, as we found out the other day, was top of his class in macroeconomics at
that's right.
Santa Fe Community College down there in Gainesville, Florida, the number one community college in all of America, by the way, everybody, in case you didn't know. Yeah. And I'm not joking. That's actually
by the Aspen Institute. The Aspen Institute gave it to us.
Yeah. So
it had a lot to do with, some of the higher echelon in the macroeconomics classes. So
T-Shroom really, he had a big impact on the curve of the ratings of that school.
That's
let's let's get in here. Oh, wait, before you call my cap, quote of the day, T-Shroom, take us away in the quote of the day.
To lose patience is to lose the battle. Mahatma Gandhi. It doesn't get much better than that.
Nice.
HBAR holders getting to put their patience into practice this week for sure. We'll get into the details of those here in just a few minutes.
Drew P says Gary Gensler was his professor. All right. Let's get into. We're gonna practice some patience and just move on past that answer right there and take a look at coin market cap. Bitcoin down almost 4% today, and while there are some other top 10 altcoins down more than that, you're going to see a lot of other ones aren't. So like Ethereum only down 3%. We're going to see Bitcoin dominance be down a little. I'll kind of address that on the charts what that looks like. But 4% for Bitcoin, 3% for Ethereum, only 2.3 for BNB. Solana, one of the bigger hits in the top 10, taking a 6% dive in the last 24 hours. XRP down 3, Dogecoin 5, Toncoin 1, and Cardano 5. Looks like Toncoin is starting to give up that gaining that it made in the market cap when it passed both Toncoin and Dogecoin. Of course, Dogecoin passed it back to number 8, but could we see Cardano get back above Toncoin in the next couple of days? We'll keep an eye on that one. You know, a lot of red here in the top 10 if you're not looking at stable coins. What about, is there any green out there whatsoever? Algorand is up 11%. We had someone ask in chat, why is ALGO going crazy? You know, it's explainable why HBAR, HBAR yesterday was up number one, up 50% on the day. Of course, it's down, still positive, up, why is it coming in that ranking? It says still up. Okay, there's glitches going on CoinMarketCap. Up 2% total right now. But ALGO had a pump. So we might need to look into that one here a little bit, T-Shroom. I know there's a lot of community crossover between Algorand and HBAR, so I wonder how much that comes into effect. But Bonk, despite the fact that other things are crashing right now, Bonk's still up 11%. Very weird to see altcoins dropping and a meme coin staying so positive. Yes, it's down 1.3 in the last hour. So maybe, it's on its way back down, but still one of our big gainers. Ondo, 5% to the upside. Dog with Hat, another meme is up. HBAR, Chili's, KuCoin, wrapping out our positive tokens today. Let's take a look at our biggest losers, though. Let's see if anything jumps off. Gnosis, down 14%. Now, BitTensor, or Tau, I don't know if that's how you pronounce the TAO, but, we put out an amazing video about that last night. T-Shroom did a fantastic job, but it looks like T-Shroom, people watched our video and decided to sell all of their BitTensor.
Yeah.
Still a solid project, but you just get to buy it on some discount today. Beam down 10% as well. Wormhole continues to take a dive. Look at that. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of these tokens like this, but Wormhole, I think, is a solid project. This does not reflect where this will go long term, but red across the board. 90% or 90 days down 55%, 30 days down 60. The last week only down 4. Today though 9%, almost 10%. So Wormhole, not been great for your investments as of late. Does that mean you shouldn't invest in it ever? Maybe not, but just maybe recently it's not so great. WorldCoin's a big loser right now. Say Athena, the Graph, Ordi. A lot of the coins actually we see in this big loser, they were big gainers here a couple of days ago. So I'm not necessarily too concerned as a whole about the whole sector. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at some charts. I mentioned Tesla, guys. We mostly talk about crypto, but take a look at Tesla. We referenced this at the very end of yesterday's show where the after-hours trading skyrocketed back up. Now, that did give us a nice gap right in here that you could see Tesla come back down and fill. But even though some of the news wasn't necessarily the greatest, I think that Tesla, especially with that sign that they didn't sell any of their Bitcoin, might be sort of the positivity there, jumping the price up. I'm going to throw it to you, Caleb. I don't know if you've been watching this chart over the last 24 hours, but what are your thoughts about Tesla right now? We've been tracking this level down towards 140 as a potential bottoming out. It's serving as kind of one right now, but it's a little too early to say that we're out of the woods just yet. What would you tell the people about Tesla stock right now?
It's never bullish when a stock is making new 52-week lows day in and day out. And so Tesla started to do that. I think it was last Thursday or Friday, and that continued this week.
Okay.
And so earnings has been a catalyst for them to move higher. I didn't really pay attention to the call. If my memory serves, I think they missed on both earnings and revenue.
Yep.
But that's all I know. So I'm kind of torn because, like I said, there's nothing bullish about any asset continuing to hit new 52-week lows day in and day out. But then when a stock responds positively to bad news, that's a very good sign from a short-term perspective. So, look, I think that there are a lot better and more attractive opportunities in the stock market, especially in mega cap tech. So,
Well,
We'll
let me
see,
ask you
but
this. Before we move on, we're going to take a look at the Bitcoin chart. I'm glad we have you here. When it comes to Tesla, and any coin in general, we're going to get some insight into how you invest and trade. Do you have a number right now that you would start buying more Tesla stock? Are you waiting for the sentiment to change and some confirmation of bullishness? What is your strategy for if / when you get back into Tesla?
I'm not really thinking about that right now. So I don't have an
Gotcha.
answer off the top of my head. I need to see firm evidence that the stock has stopped falling.
Okay.
One of the people who I really look up to in the TA world, JC Peretz, founder of All Star Charts, one of the things he says is before stocks can go up, they need to stop going down. And to me, Tesla hasn't really stopped going down. I know they're having a big day today on the earnings pop, but the onus is on buyers to continue to step in. And so far, aside from today, we haven't seen that. So we need to see today's action sustain itself for days, weeks, more than this, right? Like I need more. Clearly, the company is going through some issues fundamentally. So maybe all of it's priced in now and the stock can move higher. Maybe it's not, right? Like we really just need to wait and see.
Right.
Yeah, I will say there's two signs of positivity I do see for Tesla. I think Caleb makes great points that you do want to see confirmation. But we did come back. This level was the golden pocket of a Fibonacci retracement. This is where we had a sell order a couple of weeks ago on March 4th. This was the take profit that LuxAlgo suggested. And here today, there's it might be too early, but today we are printing a little buy flash here on the daily chart on LuxAlgo. So I don't know if this is going to send us to a brand new high. I think I told you guys yesterday, I'm actually kind of watching for not best case scenario, that's wrong term, but we do have an order breaker all the way up here at $233, meaning a fat level of liquidity that just got passed through very easily. Could you see a dead cat bounce that high before it continues the downside? We'll have to keep our eyes on that one. But with that said, let's go take a look at Bitcoin because, of course, we're here to talk a lot more crypto today, and no chart has a bigger impact on the rest of the crypto space than Bitcoin. You guys can see here there was a little bit of a development of a trend, a descending resistance level that we have kind of found a bounce on. We had two touches here previously back on April 8th and then again on April 12th. Very close to each other, but this now makes 3 consecutive touches in that trend. So this is a line. Now let's turn it red. This is a line to keep an eye on for the next little bit. You guys know we've been kind of tracking some sideways, maybe slightly downward price action for Bitcoin with falling resistance and falling support level. But instead of getting back up closer to 70K, which we could have done, it does look like we're finding some decent resistance right in here. You guys can see even, the last 4-hour candle here, a couple 4-hour candles ago, we got a very strong sell order on LuxAlgo. We broke right through our smart trail concept. We now are seeing take profit levels kind of come between 61.5 and down towards 58. That's going to put us close to that yellow support line that we've been trailing with, and we have a nice order block right in that level as well. You guys can also see there's an order block we're currently around, but we've turned it pink, and we were just talking about this yesterday. It's a new thing I'm using here on LuxAlgo. I've kind of been playing with it, but when it turns pink, that ultimately means this fat level of liquidity right in here that we should have potentially found some form of support on, we slash through it, and yet there's still a lot of liquidity there. Meaning, in a bearish trend, you could see a bounce back up into this level, and the trend is still kind of bearish, according to what LuxAlgo is putting out. So this is going to be something to watch. We're seeing a lot of signs pointing towards heading back down towards the bottom of our channel, back down towards 60K, maybe even a little bit below. Let us know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Like I said, we had some altcoins bleeding pretty heavily. Solana was one of the bigger losers. Here on the 4-hour chart, it just printed a nice little bear print. Have not removed the take profit above us, but we have now printed a sell order. We're wrestling with that smart trail concept. Got a lot of order blocks down below us. But again, if Bitcoin continues that trend, I think it's a matter of time before that smart trail concept is broken. And we're probably taking a look down here, back down towards 133, if not lower on Solana. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on. Let's take a look at the oscillators. I didn't look at Bitcoins, but you're seeing the oscillators bleeding here. Remember, this is something I've talked about a lot when you're using the LuxAlgo oscillator. We are getting a very, very strong short suggestion right now. We had that red reversal dot. We have the bearish momentum, the oscillators moving downside, but take a look here. Remember, I told you guys, when you have excessive buyers, which is what this highlighted green area is, that's very bullish in the moment. But when those buyers leave, it can almost be like a rubber band effect where things get bearish very, very fast. And that's what we see happening here on the chart. You're seeing the MACD crossing bearish. You're seeing our stochastics RSI heading down, RSI breaking below the 50 line, not bouncing in for support. So the oscillators are kind of joining with those indicators saying this is not a good look for Solana. It's definitely something to keep an eye on for sure over the next little bit. We'll take a look at more we'll take a look at more altcoins later on in the show. Those are two I want to start with right now. I saw people commenting, can we take a look at Render? Can we take a look at this coin, that coin, this coin? We got to get into some stories, some topics, and we'll get back towards the end of the show into some Q&A. You guys can ask myself, Caleb, T-Shroom, what we're seeing on the charts. I think before we go too far, T-Shroom, I know you pointed this out, so I want to give you the credit. You guys know if you're a big fan, if you guys love the T-Shroom TA and you love the Bollinger Bands, we're going to call T-Shroom Mr. Bollinger Bands. He made a great point here in Discord earlier. The 20 SMA, which is that mid-level of the daily Bollinger Bands, technically it's just a 20 MA of whatever chart you're on. Bitcoin flirted with this a couple of days ago, potentially breaking it and turning it back to support. But notice, while that one candle broke and closed above here 2 days ago, yesterday closed back below, turning that 20 SMA into resistance. Another reason to be bearish here on the Bitcoin charts. And this is the daily chart where even ALGO, again, still calling for prices down at least to 59 again, and maybe even down back to 56, 55. We've been tracking that for a while, but we're seeing the bearish indicators kind of come out in bulk right now when we're looking at altcoins. We'll keep tracking that. T-Shroom, anything you want to add to that before we jump into stories and jump into we're going to fresh Caleb up on the HBAR stuff. If anyone else has been under a rock last 24 hours, we'll let you know what's going on with HBAR. But anything you have to say about that?
Well, I'm reminded of some of the quotation from the originator of the Bollinger Band, John Bollinger, when he said, and he said this off the record, but he said to buy low, sell high. And I think more than ever that truth is perpetuated into today. So, more than just John Bollinger said that, but I just felt like that needed to be said. Some people forget that. Some people try to buy high and sell low.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
It is tried and true the best strategy in the game. Buying low and selling high has worked for most people that use that.
It's the arbitrage strategy.
That's right.
Yeah.
100% effective. Arbitrage.
Yeah. I think the only people that don't do that is the central banks. They have some other tools at their disposal where buying low and selling high doesn't make as much sense.
There we go. Guys, if you're enjoying the show, smash the like button. Let's get more likes in here. Love having all of you guys in here. We always forget to do this. Let us know in the comments. Where are you guys from? I want to see who's the farthest person away. Can anyone beat the distance of Caleb over in Romania? From here
certainly.
in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's see if anyone else can beat it. T-Shroom, I know we got a lot of stories to get into. Let's go ahead and break into that section of the show.
Yeah, well, it's on our thumbnail. It's the talk of the town. We got to get into this Hedera story, and I spent about an hour trying to get to the bottom of this today, so I might as well unpack it a little bit. Bear with me. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. CoinDesk is reporting it in this way, saying Hedera's HBAR doubles on misinterpretation of BlackRock announcement, then falls 25%. Not inaccurate. I definitely think that this is a fair characterization of what's going on, but let's get into the facts. So first of all, yesterday we got this print here from HBAR Foundation, right? The legitimate Twitter account for HBAR Foundation said, today we witness RWA history as BlackRock, ICS, U.S. Treasury, Money Market Fund, the MMF, is tokenized on Hedera with ARCAX and Owner AI, marking a major milestone in asset management by bringing the world's largest asset manager on-chain. So after reading this today, knowing what I know now, this is not an inaccurate statement, but it's leaving out a lot of important context that has been, as CoinDesk puts, misinterpreted. And I do think that that's the correct term. It's really, I wouldn't lay the blame here at HBAR Foundation. It's really just this industry is not fully understood what the different players do and why they're important and why they're there. If I had to sum it all up before I even show you guys the evidence, it's that this organization here, ARCAX, is really the one that picked Hedera, and they are the ones who, in my opinion, are the ones who rightfully picked Hedera. It was their role. BlackRock is their client. If it comes out that BlackRock is not their client, then this is a big whoopsie doozy, because that would be really bad. Obviously, there would be fraud claims as well. But from my reading, looking, kind of seeing how it all lies as the dust is starting to settle, BlackRock is a client of ARKAX, and in the same way that you would trust, right? You would trust. Let's see, coming up with a really simple analogy here. The guy on the street to make you a hot dog, right? That is your vendor for hot dogs. ARKAX is the vendor for tokenization for BlackRock. So, of course, there's going to be loads of intermediaries between BlackRock and Hedera, the ultimate service provider for tokenization. But anyway, so those are the parties we're dealing with here. And I asked the BlackRock News, the official Twitter account, I said, if BlackRock a client of ARKAX, as is claimed by Graham, CEO, co-founder of ARKAX? Therefore, this is what he claimed. Therefore, from the investment manager's perspective, they see our nominee company, Hedera, as the legal title holder, meaning ARKAX presented their nominee, Hedera, to BlackRock, and BlackRock just issued no comment, right? They didn't say it was good or bad, right? But it's also not BlackRock's call. In the same way that you don't get to pick what kind of hot dogs the hot dog vendor on the street is got going, whether they're Nathan's or Ballparks or whatever it is, you don't get to make that decision. The hot dog guy makes a decision. It's up to ARKAX. Now, maybe you could make the argument that it shouldn't be, right? Or that BlackRock shouldn't trust ARKAX to make. That's a whole different case. Whether or not Hedera goes up, price goes up, is that justified or unjustified? To me, it kind of is laid on this claim here, put out by the CEO of ARKAX, which he says very clearly in this tweet, what I just read. Therefore, from the investment manager's perspective, they see our nominee company as the legal title holder. Hedera is going to be the one to make a significant amount of value happen for BlackRock in the realm of tokenizing treasuries. So, as the way I see it, is that this original tweet is accurate. I think what the market misinterpreted is that BlackRock was the one that pulled the trigger. BlackRock pulled the trigger on authorizing ARKAX to be their vendor for tokenization, and it was ARKAX's call, and in my mind, justifiably so, per this press release. Now, there is a little bit of two weird tangles in this press release, and I know this is long-winded. We're going to get to more crypto chat. We're going to pick Caleb's mind here on some more macro concepts. But if you bear with me here, there's two little tangles that are interesting here. In the press release from the official arkax.com website, they not only quote Hedera, I'll read the statement. This builds on its launch of tokenized assets to ABRBN's MMFs last year, which ARKAX both created on, the important part of the sentence, Hedera and Ethereum blockchains. So I'm sitting here thinking the same action that has been taken that's been bullish for Hedera is being stated in this press release as the same. There is no difference here than for Ethereum, right? They've been testing this, and they've been working with both blockchains to tokenize for the MMF, right, for BlackRock's fund. The other thing I thought that was notable was that there is no statement from BlackRock in this press release, whereas we do get one from ARKAX, obviously, from Graham, the CEO. We get one from the counterparty here, the CEO of Onera, and then we also get one from the HBAR Foundation, but there is no statement from BlackRock. And that leads me to the conclusion that we will see price go up for Hedera when BlackRock gets their whatever messaging together and says, and basically says what I just said in the way that they're going to say it. Now, if they come out and we get a statement from BlackRock saying ARKAX has gone rogue, they told Hedera that they had been selected, but they do not have the authorization to make that claim, and BlackRock is distancing itself from ARKAX, that is a huge red flag, and we will see downside for Hedera, in my opinion. So that's the long and short of it. It's more complicated, right? And that's why we saw a lot of volatility in this move. One thing I will point out, just to close here, is that Hedera, current price, if I go out to the daily chart, the current price here is just above. It's actually moved, but it was trading just above the height of the midline of the Bollinger Band here, and we got as high as 100%. The market has not given 100% of that back, right? We got 100% move to the upside in less than 24 hours. The market has given back as much as 35%, but live time, only 30% of that has been given back. That is still, in a 24-hour period, a 40% upside for Hedera, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that there is a lot of money that is kind of in the circles of ARCAX. They knew that this was going to happen, and I'm not trying to say like there's any kind of insider trading. That's not what I'm saying here. It's just this. That's what this money is. This is money that knew about it and is not selling because they understand the dynamics here. All right. Well, that's a T-Shroom take. Could it be completely wrong? Probably not, but it could be. So there you go.
Before I'm going to dive into some more emotion stuff here, and you guys, a lot of people love Tim rants. But before I get into Tim rant time, Caleb, I know it looks like a lot of this stuff you're processing in the moment. What are your thoughts about what you heard from T-Shroom? You still need to hear more. Like, what are your thoughts about HBAR as a whole? What you just heard from him, the kind of chaos in the story. You know, what's true, what's not true. What are you feeling?
I mean, everything makes sense, you know? It's like, I think people just kind of jumped the gun thinking it was something that it's not, and there just needs to be more information or more direct information.
Yeah.
T-Shroom, that was a great synopsis. And then I decided to look. I went to the ARCAX website. You don't need to share my screen on any of this, but it was interesting to see all the different money market funds that they have, because if you go to their custody tab, they have a Treasury Solutions page. Actually, you might want to share my screen for this.
Sure.
And so they have cash custody, money market funds, and interest-bearing instruments. So if we click on money market funds, we could see all of the different options that they do have here. And so here's the BlackRock ICS US Treasury Fund. They also have one for Europe. And this is probably for the UK, right? The Sterling Government Liquidity Fund. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. They have 6 different options here. And then I went to BlackRock's page to look at this ICS US Treasury Fund, and they're offering 5.1% on the money market fund, and that's consistent with what I'm seeing in other custodians or other financial service companies. This is what Fidelity is offering. This is what all the brokerage accounts are offering. So, I mean, this is interesting. I think at the end of the day, just the fact that this is something that's possible using blockchain solutions is really exciting, and just kind of shows that there's still a lot that's going to be taking place here. I know for a lot of folks, they've really thought about, and I know this isn't real world asset type stuff, but just the fact that we're like tokenizing financial products on chain, and specifically TradFi financial instruments on chain. I know a lot of people have been talking about Ondo as kind of the main affiliation with BlackRock and real world assets, because Larry Fink gets on TV and he talks about Bitcoin for sure because they have the ETFs, but then he's always talking about tokenization of real world assets, like on-chain tokenization. And so I think the fact that these murmurings have really been coming out over the past several months that, BlackRock has had their spot Bitcoin ETF, I think, again, that just kind of shows like everyone was just so on edge to get some announcement like that when it came, like the details didn't matter. And so we had that 100% gain. And now it's like, wait, well, we need more information. Like, it's not, what's happening, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. And I think one thing to note that I didn't really highlight, and that was really good, Caleb, I appreciate you bringing up those 2 references there, is that I think HBAR is very far from being very involved in the misinterpretation. In my opinion, I think their original tweet here, it is accurate. I think they have so much internal communication. I think they're forgetting that the general public doesn't understand what these intermediaries do and how they have way more responsibility in picking which blockchain, and in a hash graph in the case of Hedera is going to be the one that does this RWA, this tokenization. So I would just say that I don't think Hedera is really the one. They're caught in the crossfire here, but really it's just it seems like all 3 of these PR teams just they underestimated the level of education in the crypto world about these more traditional layers of intermediaries in a brand new industry of tokenization. So it kind of makes sense that there's some ball dropping here because it's so new, and there's a gap between what the market understands about these intermediaries and what the crypto market understands.
I just have a quick question. It looked like, T-Shroom, when you were going through that initial coverage on this, it was saying that tokenization is happening on Hedera, but also on Ethereum.
That's
Is
right.
that true?
Yep. Well, that's according to their press release.
So how come Ethereum isn't really doing much right now? Just because it's so much bigger, and like this doesn't really.
I think it's because likely they just went ahead and just used Solidity and just went in and did what they wanted to do with tokenization. Building dApps on Ethereum is easy, right? Whereas with Hedera, they probably had a lot more touch points with important contacts saying, hey, we want to build on Hedera. We like the hash graph model. We think it's fast. We think it's secure. And so they probably had a lot of back and forth comms. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't have any comms with Ethereum. It's just something motivated the HBAR Foundation to tweet this out. And so far, they have not really issued very much clarification, right? They're continuing to promote generally this PR, this publication of news. So yeah. It's a tickler. It's a mind tickler for sure.
And that's where I'm going to take. I want to make sure I preface this by saying I don't have any particular affinity for HBAR. Like it's like my favorite thing ever. I also don't have any particular ill will towards HBAR. Right. So I feel like I'm coming at this from a very neutral perspective. Not that T-Shroom and Caleb aren't as well. I'm just saying I'm going to present. I think T-Shroom I think T-Shroom did a very good job of explaining why this shouldn't be as bad as some people are perceiving it.
Right.
Now I'm going to go on the opposite side and say this might not be as good as maybe a lot of HBARians want to think of it this way. And T-Shroom hit it right on the head. There's not been a lot of information to come out. And let me tell you why that is a negative thing. Because this was massive market manipulation, whether on purpose or not. That news story. Could we plead ignorance? Maybe. But you don't think that they knew how big of a headline that was going to be, that they were partnering with BlackRock. And this has this feeling, I don't know who else agrees with me or not, but this has this feeling almost like it was all set up as a convenient truth that didn't include all of the details that they knew would have a massive impact on price. But later on, when people realized it wasn't necessarily as clear as what they made it out to be, they could fall back on a technicality of truth, right? So that's my concern here. I'm not necessarily saying this was a full-blown lie. I am saying, was this potentially a opportunistic, hey guys, we can really pump the bags today of HBAR by announcing something that's true in a weird way that really excites the markets, only it's not really what they think. And now here's the kicker. If I would have called it an accident if there was a flood of information coming out from all parties involved to explain the misunderstanding, but there's not. There's a lot of confusion in the space. I agree with T-Shroom that this would be very easily clarified if we hear from BlackRock, if we hear more from the HBAR team, more clarity here other than, well, we're technically telling the truth. I think this is a potential, not killer of HBAR, but a potential. Someone said earlier, do you trust HBAR is a bad question. I think it's a good question. I put that poll in there because what I'm sitting here speculating potentially is, did HBAR take a truth, conveniently stretch it to pump the price action, knowing that there would be backtracking, and then now there's not very explainable backtracking. I don't like this move for HBAR. I don't think that this is over for HBAR. I told you guys yesterday when I thought this news was true that this was a big deal to me. I was going to bump HBAR up my predictive rankings in CoinMarketCap to potentially say I need to invest more in it, right? If we don't think that HBAR, social media people, executives, and whoever did not think that an article and a statement that they were partnering with BlackRock was going to massively pump their coin, they're lying to you. They knew that. They knew they were going to pump a lot of hopium into the space. Yeah. And it was convenient hopium. I don't like that. So not only is HBAR ticked back down my list of where I'm going to rank it, it is starting to be a question. I'm not saying that my answer at this point is no, and I don't want to invest a single dime in HBAR, but it does give me a little pause to say, this is a very weird and convenient story that has some smells of fishiness on it that I'm not completely at peace with.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of reminds me of the airdrop for Arbitrum. It kind of reminds me of the XRP, the Ripple Labs kind of pump and then immediate sell off. And then also, the fake tweet that came out around the SEC, that told everybody that the it kind of has the smellings of that. But a lot of these, they were explained with just it wasn't super manipulation, and of course it's going to be hard to find a smoking gun on those things. One thing I would say is that reading through this 18 tweet thread from Graham, the SEO of ARCAX, it really, if you kind of read the tone and what he's saying and how long it takes him to get to kind of the smoking gun that I found, or at least, a lot of what has informed kind of my thoughts around what's going on here, it to me, the way that I'm falling on this, which I'm just one opinion, right, floating around in the ether, but it seems to me like they're coming from like the VC, like banking processing intermediary world, and they're kind of assuming that all investors kind of know how that works, and that's just not the case. Crypto people are coming in it from like, we've done research on how blockchains work. That's our nerd out mode, right? Yeah. So, what I would say is go read this. I'm posting it in the chat right now, and you guys can go read it for yourselves and kind of make up your own decision. It looks like I already put it in there. So, check that out. But, ultimately, there's different ways to arbitrage the market, right? In a sense, going back to what you were saying, Tim, is like some people are going to try to sit there and arbitrage on the price and gaps in the price, and other people are going to try to arbitrage on gaps of knowledge. I think that's what we're seeing here, is that to the extent that there was intent behind these different parties, I think that's what happened, is that they kind of knew that the average person who's sitting there in a HBAR terminal that could enter and exit HBAR at leverage or whatever, they're not going to understand how banking intermediaries, especially on the cutting edge of tokenization, are operating. Now, another important question, if you wanted to hold HBAR as an investment for the long term based on this headline, is asking the question, how many ARCAXs are there out there? Because if ARCAX is the only counterparty for BlackRock's tokenization, then this is very big for Hedera, and it's undervalued at current pricing. But if ARCAX is like a dime a dozen, and there's a bunch of companies out there that are going to be providing digital asset trading, that sounds pretty broad, right? For BlackRock, for Fidelity, for other banks and other big money managers that want to move into this space, then Hedera is just going to be one chain tapped, or graph tapped, out of probably most crypto Web3 projects that are looking to do Web3. So that's another important question asked from an investment standpoint. How tight is the bottleneck?
That's it. A lot. This whole thing was really put into and perpetuated by the HBAR community as if BlackRock handpicked HBAR, and that's where, when we don't know the exact details of everything,
and that part is definitely inaccurate.
I'm not accusing the tweet. I'm not accusing the tweet you pull up. I am talking though about the perceived amplification, because not everyone in the world saw the tweet. I'm telling you right now, that was the first time I saw that tweet. I had not seen that tweet before, right? I responded to a lot of other things. This space as a whole perpetuated a story as if BlackRock had handpicked HBAR, and HBAR did not do a great job in dispelling that rumor. And here's the other thing, and we said it before.
Yeah.
Why is BlackRock? I mean, maybe I'll give one benefit of the doubt, and then I'll make my accusation.
Right.
Maybe BlackRock is looking at all this and saying, this isn't worth our time. We don't care. This is stupid, right? Maybe. But BlackRock could easily end all of the chaos by making a public statement by saying, hey, we hired ARCAX, whatever their name is, and they chose HBAR. We're gonna see what happens. But the fact that they haven't made a public statement, a lot of things happen behind the doors. Do we potentially have BlackRock sitting here saying, when we put money into that account, we didn't know they were going to just go around. We need to rewrite some of our bylaws with them to where they're not allowed to just take our money and put it wherever they want. The fact that they haven't come out and made a public statement is something that, again, I'll make the case for maybe they just think it's not a big deal and that's why they're not addressing it. I would argue that this is a big deal. Again, when a coin pumps 100%, we're not talking about coin ranked number 757. We're talking about the coin that was ranked number 29. We're talking about a coin that doubled its market cap. That was, where do we get to? We started yesterday. Let me look at this. I don't want to just spit the number out without having a relative area. It's not going to be the exact number, but yesterday it was closer to right below 4 billion, maybe a little bit lower than that. But we're not talking about a token with 300 million that doubled to 600 million. We're talking about a token that went from, let's just say, 3 billion to 6 billion in market cap. That's a lot of money. There's a lot of people that lost money because they bought HBAR at darn near close, 16, 17 cents, thinking this thing was handpicked by BlackRock. That's a big deal, and it's one that I think BlackRock would want to make a statement on. So their silence, to me, is a little bit of like, I think there's more to this story that will come out over the next couple of days. But at the same time, I want to make sure people understand, I am not saying do not go buy HBAR. That's not what I'm saying. I am not saying HBAR is going to zero. What I am saying is HBAR today is not as bullish long-term as what we thought 24 hours ago. That is something that people should take away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's in flux. And,
yeah,
what we said yesterday is holding true. It's like, don't sell high conviction coins or stocks for a loss to rotate into HBAR, because we don't really have the full picture yet.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've given it the attention it deserves. It's an important story because we're setting precedent here with how these big organizations communicate with public investors and different things like that. But we'll move on. Let's move on because there's other things to talk about. There's actually a lot of really crazy stuff. We'll start off with this one and hopefully move through it pretty quick, but I don't know. We'll see. President Biden, maybe you've heard of him, officially signs bill to ban TikTok unless its owner ByteDance agrees to sell the platform. So we've already been well educated on what this all means. This is no different from what passed the Senate a couple of weeks ago and is set to go into action, I believe, or it's in action now, but I believe that that ByteDance has until about September or October, I believe it is, to go ahead and divest, or else TikTok will be banned from U.S. users. Any thoughts on this? I mean, I know it's not going to affect portfolios immediately, but this could have impacts on millions of people around the world who derive their income from an American audience on TikTok.
The biggest question is going to be: are we confident that? Do we think this will be the end of TikTok, or do we think this TikTok CEO is sitting here saying, "If I lose the American audience, my business is done anyways. I might as well sell it and take some money and start a new venture"? What do you guys think is going to happen? Do you think they sell? Do you think they say, "Never mind, we're just going to go our own way," and then TikTok effectively gets crushed? What do you guys think is going to happen?
I saw the CEO of TikTok posted something on TikTok. I didn't watch it, but basically saying he had a lot of confidence that they'd be fine and that they weren't going to divest. And so it's like, it's just negotiations. I think the interesting thing from it's so hard to judge what the probabilities are. And so I let the market speak. And so today, Facebook stock, Meta Platforms, is down 0.4%, despite jumping and gapping significantly higher this morning. T-Shroom, if you want to go to my screen on this,
that's a good point.
See from the session open until right now, Facebook stock is down 2.6%. And you would think that if TikTok was going to be banned and more attention is going to be going over to, let's look at the other social media names. We have Pinterest. This is down 0.8%. Also popped this morning and has fallen back since. And then Snapchat, down 2.7. So why wouldn't, if there was a high probability of a ban coming into place, these stocks would probably be doing much better.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. And I think my overall take on this is that's excellent, especially after reviewing, the price movement from, its competitors. I think TikTok would be fine because, you got to look at the reason that the United States establishment is looking to ban TikTok in the first place. And that's because, the people who have access to the data on the users of TikTok are making a lot of money, and they're also making a lot of important geopolitical decisions even sometimes based on that data, right? And so it's going to be tough for, the ByteDance and the Chinese interests there to divest because they're not looking at it solely from a profit motive, right? And that's why the U.S. establishment wants to ban it. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, built up in this decision.
Yeah, just that there's popular opinion. That is what the news outlets will say. There's popular opinion. The biggest issue with TikTok is actually the fact that it doesn't censor all political opinions. We already know that the government and a certain side of the government has their hand in Instagram and Facebook's pockets. We already know they have their hands in YouTube. We already know they have their hands in some of the largest platforms. They recently, in the last couple of years, lost X. So Blackie Chan just put it here. But by the way, love Blackie Chan. He said, screw TikTok. Insignificant news, to be honest. I disagree. This is actually very, very important news. Whether you love TikTok or not, this is important news. Why? Because a precedent was set that the US government can apply pressure and stop social media platforms that they do not agree with, that they deem harmful, from existing within the US. Let's just extrapolate that, guys. If you do not think that the government is very furious with Elon Musk and X right now, you are kidding yourself. But yet, what is the best platform right now for decentralized information? Meaning you can be extremely left and post without getting taken down. You can be extremely right. You can be cuckoo. You can be sane. X is letting a lot of things go up there. Even the TikTok stuff. I mean, this is something I have to get. I have relationships with people that could probably explain this 10 times better than me. But ultimately, the real problem with TikTok that the government saw was that they were allowing political thoughts that they did not agree with to be on TikTok. That doesn't happen on Instagram. That did not happen on Twitter 3 years ago, right? It's not an issue of saying that there's anti-American propaganda. It's an issue of saying there's political propaganda that current government entities do not agree with. That is called censorship. Censorship is a big deal. Effectively, what's happening right now with this TikTok ban is a form of censorship. Whether you agree with it or not, that is a precedence that's very scary for the rights to free speech expressed on social media platforms. And while some people are going to say, you know what, it's not violating your free speech to not have a social media platform, on its own initial merits, maybe not, but let's just be honest. How do people communicate in bulk right now? I mean, I've never met Caleb in person. I communicate with Caleb 100% online. Our relationship grew through social media conversation. So if all of a sudden certain people are censored because of their political leanings, and I'm talking about people, even if that person disagrees with me 1,000% on the other side of the spectrum, to censor someone on a platform that has the majority of communication worldwide is a violation of free speech. And that's why this bill going into effect is so scary. And so it is a big deal. And it ultimately doesn't matter if it goes away or gets bought or whatever. The precedence that was set in Washington this past week is a very scary one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right. I've got another story kind of like that, but I'm going to read it and I'm going to get into the next story after that, which has to do with the Fed, which is meeting next week, or it's meeting on May 1st, so very, very soon. So we want to go ahead and get our heads around that. But this is another story that is going to absolutely affect the business world. FTC bans non-compete agreements, making it easier for workers to quit. Here's what to know. So this is a really big deal. There was another big deal kind of like this. And again, we're getting into the Fed right after this, but there was another one. The Department of Transportation is making it mandatory that airlines have to immediately give refunds whenever flights are canceled. So there's like really big sweeping legislation coming out just all of a sudden. It's interesting. Maybe we'll get something for crypto, hopefully in favor of the crypto. But all right, here we go. Getting into the Fed story that's just coming up here. This decision is going to be on May 1st. April 30th is the meeting. May 1st is the decision and press conference, which is the day that we get all the sexy fireworks and everything. CNBC running a headline today, why the Fed keeping rates higher for longer may not be such a bad thing. So we'll start there. Caleb, I know that you're sticking to your guns here, that we're not going to get a cut. Higher for longer, though, is there any kind of sense to what CNBC is trying to sell here to their audience? Could higher for longer actually help crypto, help stocks?
I don't see how it's necessarily accretive. I mean, you learn basic finance 101, how to calculate the present value of future cash flows by discounting those cash flows with an interest rate. And so all else being equal, high interest rates mean lower net present value, and rising interest rates mean lower net present value. So I don't necessarily see it as being good. I think one thing that's been pretty interesting, and I saw a headline about this too, that and we touched on it just on this call, is like money market funds, right? They're offering 5.1%. I know people who got big time bonuses over the last 2 months, and they're like, hey, I want to buy more stocks. I'm feeling really good with my portfolio. I want to buy more Bitcoin, but man, I can get 5.1, 5.2% in these money market funds. Like, why do I shouldn't have any cash in my savings account. I should only have operating expense money in my checking account. And so they're just putting all this money into these money market funds. so if the Fed cuts rates, those money market fund yields are going to be coming down, right? Mm-hmm. And the point is, like, at this point, I'm not expecting sizable rate cuts, right? So if the Fed cuts one time this year, we're talking about money market funds that are still going to be offering 4.8%, and that's still really, really good.
Right.
But in terms of like the performance of stocks or the performance of crypto, all else being equal, we want to see yields go lower. We want to see the Fed cut.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we talked about it a little bit on this call. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago, just right in the immediate aftermath of the CPI data. And I was showing that headline CPI X shelter on a year-over-year basis, when that's accelerating, we've actually seen something like the NASDAQ Composite Index move higher. And Tim was the one who kind of spurred that idea for me to look into that. And I was really surprised by those findings, right? So basically showing that so long as inflation remains within a normal range and a historical normal range, even if it moves a little bit higher, which in turn would push rates up a little bit more too, right? Then asset prices can perform well in that environment, so long as we don't get runaway inflation. So, you know, maybe, right? Like, it's really difficult to say, because it's like yields move for a multitude of reasons. So it's like, we can't just say, oh, yields up is bad and yields down is good. It's like, because yields can fall if a recession happens next week. that certainly wouldn't be good for asset prices, right? Yeah. So context always matters with this kind of stuff. It's not just super binary.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, I guess the follow-up question there would be, have you seen anything that gives you any indication that there will be anything other than a pause May 1st?
No, not at all. So let me just pull this up. You can go to my screen on this T-Shroom. And then we'll just zoom out on this bad boy. So, you know, 6-month treasury yield is still at 5.37%. Let's add on the effective federal funds rate. Same percent scale, but then I need to swap this to regular. So we have the effective Fed funds rate in black and the 6-month treasury yield in blue. And so long as the 6-month treasury yield is basically equivalent to the Fed funds rate, cuts aren't coming for the next 6 months, right? So I keep saying this, and I say it's on a rolling basis. So we need to keep checking this week after week, month after month, to make sure that the treasury market isn't telling us anything new. And it's not telling us anything new. So, you know, we need to see the 6-month treasury yield trading 0.25% below Fed funds. So that's 5.08% or lower for the 6-month treasury yield. And right now it's trading at 5.38%. So we need to see the 6-month treasury yield fall 30 basis points for the market to tell us that cuts are coming. One cut is coming over the next 6 months. We're still extremely far from that, right? So, I mean, we could look at the 6-month treasury yield. It's basically trading exactly where it was last May, 1 year ago.
Wow.
You know, and even during this period where it fell below Fed funds, right? Like, let's really zoom in on this. What was the lowest that it got? 5.19%. So even in January and February of this year, it was still saying no rate cuts for the next 6 months, right? Because we only got to 5.189. We needed to get to 5.08% or lower for the market to be telling us that the cuts are coming in 6 months. So no, the market is still telling us the exact same thing it's been saying, and it's that cuts aren't coming for another 6 months at least, right? And so with where we are today, that puts us at what, October? And so there's the meeting in September, there's no meeting in October, and then we have the meeting in November. So as far as I'm concerned, September's out the window. The first time we can possibly expect to see rate cuts is in the October meeting, or excuse me, the November meeting.
Yep. Tim, anything to add here to this Fed stew? I mean, Caleb, he's been coming on saying the same thing, being right week after week. I will say that State Street did say that we will get a cut May 1st. So we'll see. It's Caleb versus State Street out here.
I think I live tweeted that they need to subscribe to Cubic Analytics, because that's right. Bananas. That is bananas.
I think the Fed Watch tool that we follow is predicting September slightly. It's not overwhelming. It's very barely suggesting it, but I'm kind of in the camp of like maybe we get one in 2024, but I'm kind of getting closer towards none. But if people are asking, can that be bullish? Well, just remember, the same is like, let's say you're getting to a swimming pool, and there's the levels of the swimming pool get colder and colder. You'll put your feet in the top ring, and at first it might shock you, but you get used to it, and you're fine. Then you go a little lower, and it shocks you again. And at a certain point, you get in the deep end, and your body's used to it, and you're good to go, just like that golden retriever right there, right? the market's going to work the same way. We were thinking there was rate cuts coming. Those didn't happen. Shocked us. Price dipped a little bit. But if we get used to this high level, are the interest rates high? Yes, they're high. But if the market just gets used to it, it'll chug along and do its thing. And at the moment, Bitcoin is massively, in the long term, massively underpriced. I mean, it might be a fair price for right this second, but the price of Bitcoin is going to keep going up, up, up and to the right in its value. What's going to cause it to go down is when there's a shock, when something unexpectedly bearish happens, like a rate hike that we're not expecting, or the economy starts to have problems. And even that, I think, is a quick fall and an ascension. But even this, we thought we were going to get something better and more bullish. We didn't. So price isn't still climbing. But at a certain point, we'll just say, you know what? All right, we didn't get the rate cut, but we're used to this current rate. At this point, there's nothing saying we have to raise rates. I do think it's a conversation that should be had by people at the Fed, just in case. But it's not like inflation is going on the numbers. I know we all know inflation sucks. But on the numbers on the charts that affect whether they raise rates or cut rates, it's not getting out of control. It's not going nuts. So theoretically speaking, if the inflation balances and we see the rates balance, that could bring back a bullish narrative that maybe wasn't as bullish as if we could cut rates, but it still could bring back the bullishness. And that's kind of what I'm anticipating. I'm anticipating we'll resume the rate cut speech later this fall, right on line with that normal cycle of post-halving. Crypto seems to trend sideways and boring. And then every single time it's different, but something spurs a bullish catalyst and crypto takes off. In this case, it might be this situation. I think it might be we're going to trade sideways and boring because we're in limbo. We're not raising rates, but inflation's not getting better, so we're in limbo. And then later on, things start to look a little bit better, and then we release the wolves, and crypto takes off.
I think it's an interesting base case, and just to kind of highlight that, I've got this S&P 500 E-mini future contracts pulled up here, and I've just got a big fib, like a long-term fib, and you can see that the S&P hitting all-time highs, right? April 1st, right? So it's not like the market is really suffering. Now we've seen a correction here, right about 7%, right in the last less than a month, but we just found support at the platinum pocket, the 0.786, and we immediately got back out of the platinum pocket to the upside. So to me, this market is looking dynamic, and dare I say, it's looking resilient.
What do you know?
Yeah.
Very delayed.
Cool
All
stuff.
right. I love it. Well, we've got more stories here. I think the Fed question.
I think T-shirt, for the sake of time, I think we're going to need to save stories for tomorrow. We have a super chat we need to read. We have a factoid, and I would like to give people some Q&A. They only get Caleb once a week, so they got to be able to ask him the hard-hitting questions.
It's true.
We're going to throw it back for the super chat to BlackRock and HBAR NMCT. I don't know if I completely agree with this, but I'm going to read it. Thank you for the money in the super chat. BlackRock has some fiduciary duties with who sells their product. I could agree with that one. Most of it is dependent on the seller. It's the same with stock-based basket ETFs, which buy and sell other products within their ETF. HBAR scammed hardcore. That's where I'm like, I'm not, and you guys know I took the more negative side. I am not going to say that HBAR scammed as much as I'd say HBAR, you have some explaining to do. I'm not going to say yet it's a scam, but I do think there's further explanation before you can feel before I feel comfortable. I guess I'm not going to speak for anybody else. In the same way, I don't want you guys speaking for me. I don't want me to speak for you guys. Tim Warren has questions that need to be answered before he feels comfortable heavily investing into HBAR after this situation.
Yeah, and I'll just give my quick answer, Caleb. I mean, we're getting back into the HBAR stuff, which I feel like we covered fairly well. But yeah. I know you like to say, just look at the market. You just pulled up Meta, as a result of that TikTok headline. So I'd pull up HBAR. It's like, look, if it was a scam and it was clear that it was a scam, the market would have given back this green God candle, right? The market hasn't done that. Now, maybe there's just a bunch of completely degenerate people who just hit a giant bong rip and they're still waking up from it and they don't even know what's going on, right? That's possible. But my guess is that, no, there's people that understand the higher levels of data of tokenization and payment processing for the BlackRock clientele, and they're the ones that are holding here, right? They bought back here. And they're like, no, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to wait, maybe even buy more. Right. So again, I don't feel that the dust is fully settled on this until we get a clear statement from BlackRock, which we might not get. There's a chance that BlackRock's just like, we don't, saw it in the comments. BlackRock's just like, we don't care. So I'm definitely not saying though that HBAR is a scam. Way too early to say that. I think this is just a miscommunication. I think CoinDesk said it well. It's misinterpretation by the market. I mean, it's the market's fault. It's the people sitting there with the buy button that shot it up to 100%. It wasn't an HBAR tweet, right? So,
boom.
The market's just either wrong, misinformed, right? And it's clearly it's at least halfway misinformed because that's what we've retraced. The people that bought it on the news have sold.
Let's get into our factoid of the day, and then we'll
let's do it, Tim. Our factoid of the day, brought to you by ALGO. You've seen it on our charts. You've seen all throughout today. We didn't do a ton of charting today, but ALGO is what's bringing you the following premium question, factoid of the day. Which of the following is not a real Tesla product? Is it A, the Tesla Semi, B, Tesla solar panels, C, Tesla Megapack, or D, the Tesla Android charger? Which is not a real Tesla product?
I'm pretty sure there is an A and B. What's a Megapack? I don't even know if I know what that is.
I know the answer, so I'm going to let Tim work this out.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh. I'm an Apple user when it comes to phones, but I would imagine it wouldn't be hard to have an Android charger. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to say D because I'm kind of singling it down to C and D. I have no idea what a Megapack is, but that makes me suspect that maybe that's a Tesla product. So I'm going to go with, it seems like Android charger could be the right one here when that's something that could be easy to build. They just haven't built it. So D, Tesla Android charger. Caleb, what is the right answer?
D, Tesla Android charger.
All right, you're both banking on it here.
Well, he said he knows that.
Tesla Android charger. If you look at the Tesla products, they've got all the models, the Cybertruck, the Powerwall, and the Megapack. Now, Tim, I didn't really know what a Megapack is either. The Tesla Megapack is a large-scale rechargeable lithium-ion battery stationary energy storage product. So it looks like kind of, commercial-grade solar solutions is what I would characterize that as.
Okay. Is that much different than the solar?
Tim, it's a Megapack. I'll send you one. I'll send you a free sample.
Silly Tim.
I'll get Elon to send you a free sample.
All right. Let's get into some Q&A, everybody, especially directed towards Caleb again. We are so glad to have Caleb on every single Wednesday. If you guys have some questions you are yearning to get a Caleb Franzen answer on, go ahead and shoot it in chat. While we're waiting on that, I follow your tweets every day, Caleb, obviously. Make sure you guys as well go follow him on Twitter. I saw a post I think you put out this morning about people that are arguing for an asset that's down 6%, telling you're dumb for investing in one that's up 111%. Can you go into the story? I would love to hear more about that tweet and about what's going on there.
I just have these bitter reply guys trying to shove mining stock performance in my face. And kudos. I never said I was bearish on the miners. I just thought MicroStrategy was going to perform better. I've been wrong about that for the past few weeks, and that's okay. Yeah. So, oh no, I was wrong. And I don't think I'm going to be wrong for much longer. So, it is what it is. Like, nice. I have no animosity towards anybody, but for some reason, I'm like a target when it comes. I mean, I'm really not a target. These few reply guys are just becoming a nuisance more than anything else. And yes, Eric, you are one of them.
Yeah. I was like, just so you know, I had to we had to put Eric in a doghouse for the weekend. He did apologize.
I don't blame you.
I told him he needs to send you a box of chocolate, that he needs to say he's sorry and stuff. It's just, that's good old Eric Wallen. He does it with everybody, and sometimes he just needs to get brought back to the doghouse. See, I love you, Caleb, is what he says. There's all love.
Well, but here's the ultimate Eric, question. Go ahead.
I'll say, Eric, you need to make things right. You sometimes go after people, and then you create these enemies, and you don't want enemies. Not enemies with Caleb. He has a question too, but T-Shroom, what you had a question for?
Well, here, I mean, this is probably the question we could probably end on. This could this could give us another hour, honestly. Where are you deploying your dry powder, T-Shroom?
We'll direct that to everybody though. Let's skip that question for now. Let's add that the last question. All three of us can kind of answer that one. Eric did say, Caleb, do you own any foreign stocks or indexes?
I would never touch foreign stocks or indexes.
You know who? Because you know who's overinvested into emerging markets? Peter Schiff.
Oh.
Yeah, of course he is.
He loves gold and he loves emerging markets. Now, emerging markets, I would say, are not the worst, but over the last couple decades, have not performed well.
Man,
it's not something you want to just buy diversified. You want to target like Japan and Nigeria that have done pretty well, but you get exposure to way too much. Oh, here we go.
Can you go to my chart, please?
Is that the emerging market index? Yep.
This is the S&P 500 relative to the emerging market index.
Oh,
so there is no point whatsoever in owning emerging market equities because this is what the S&P 500 has done relative to those equities. Okay. This is just since 2012. So, one of the strongest bull markets of all time. We've seen in the past where emerging markets can outperform US stocks. We've seen that environment before. Typically, that's going to happen during more of like commodity super cycles because when we think about emerging markets, we really think about material stocks, we think about energy stocks, so on and so forth. There's a lot of financials, especially in Europe, but there's almost no tech in emerging markets, right? In terms of how they're weighted in these ETFs. And so when we're in a bull market, you want to own as much tech as possible. And so that's what this chart shows us. Since 2010, the bear market really ended in 2009. The S&P 500 has just blown emerging market stocks out of the water. Look, it was trading at 25 on a relative basis in October of 2010. It's 125 today.
Wow.
That's a 5x increase on a relative basis, you guys. That is a massive amount of outperformance coming from US stocks relative to emerging markets.
Yeah. Speaking of the S&P 500, share my screen real quick. This was brought to our attention on our Discord today, and we're blocking it a little bit. Let me make it smaller. Hold on. I made it too big. Make it smaller so we can see it all together. Ada Ace put this on our Discord, the general chat today. This is what you guys get. You get to see this kind of stuff when you go into our Discord, free Discord, by the way. This is the S&P 500 over the Fed balance sheet. And the point here of where he posted from, I think it was a Twitter post, is that the S&P 500 is relatively flat. You got some bumps and stuff along the way. But since 2008, this is where this flat level starts. Have you seen this chart before, Caleb? What are your thoughts about this? The S&P 500, when you take into account the Fed balance sheet, it's not actually really doing that much. It's kind of like we're just absorbing and going along with inflation. And so all the big bullishness is just because we have to keep up with the dollar being degraded. Do you have a strong thought, disagreement, agreement?
I do.
Yeah.
This chart is like optimized for virality. It doesn't really have much meaning.
Okay.
The Fed's balance sheet is not real. It does not materially impact actual investors, right? Like it's a liquidity dynamic, so it's important. I'm a Fed guy. Of course, I'm not trying to minimize the importance and the significance of the Fed's balance sheet. But when we think about an asset relative to something, I would say that using M2 is a much more appropriate denominator than the Fed's balance sheet. Okay. Because M2 is going to be impacted by the Fed balance sheet in some capacity because hopefully it's going to impact deposits. Hopefully it enters the real economy. Hopefully banks are lending, and all of that is going to be impacted and reflected in something like M2. I get the point.
Yeah.
But I think that M2 as the denominator is going to be much more meaningful.
So let me get this right, Caleb. We might be breaking some ice here. You're saying people manipulate information on the internet for attention?
No.
This isn't manipulated. It's valid. It's just not as important as it might seem.
Yeah, because what's on the Fed balance sheet is mostly just like at minimum mortgage-backed securities and then just bonds, right? Treasuries.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just the government buying and selling its own goods and services, which is just debt, and then a little bit of mortgage-backed securities, which is real. That's the real estate debt. So it's just the Fed moving debt around, and to look at that relative to the S&P, it's true, like you said, it's valid, but it's not something that's super actionable. If anything, it just says the Fed is moving a lot of debt, and that's not awesome. It's also not really something to measure against the S&P too heavy. For those of you who didn't know, emerging markets is a term refers to an economy that experiences considerable economic growth and possesses some, but not all characteristics of a developed economy. And usually when it's kind of thrown around in like kind of Wall Street context, it's most economies that are not the United States. Getting offshore of the United States, going and buying, like a South African mining stock is kind of that's where my mind goes, at least when I think of emerging markets.
Do you want to go to my screen really quick, T-Shrimp?
I absolutely do.
So this is the S&P 500 relative to M2 money supply. So here we have pre-GFC, that was the top. Then we had COVID. Then we had Fed tightening. In Q4 of 2021, going into the Fed tightening in Q1 of 2022. And, then we had this big sell-off here in Q3 of last year. And we've been able to break above this, right? So, it's very true that the S&P 500 has basically just maintained the pace relative to debasement, right? Basically saying since, the QE era, it has not really done much at all relative to M2. And especially as you zoom out further, right? You have the dot-com bubble back here, so on and so forth. But generally speaking, like pre-QE, this chart, like it's a mixed bag, right? It's not super clear one way or the other. We can have these periods of significant downtrends in the stock market relative to M2, followed by significant outperformance. And, basically like a lost 20 years is what we're looking at right here. But this to me is much more meaningful and impactful than the Fed's balance sheet. Because if you guys are bullish on M2, you have to be ultra, ultra, ultra bullish on the Fed's balance sheet, right? QE infinity, all this type of stuff. Like the Fed's balance sheet is not going down sustainably in any meaningful way, right? And we've seen it, decline here over the past year and some change, 2 years and some change, I guess. But again, not to a material amount.
I like that.
And just
Good
for
stuff.
everybody, kind of newer to some of these economic terms, we try to keep it fresh for the noobs. So fresh that you can't even see it sometimes.
Yeah.
So let me just read this. A measure of M2 is a measure of money supply that includes cash, checking deposit, and non-cash assets that can easily be converted into cash. So it's the money that's out there in the economy, not the money that's in banks and the central bank of the Federal Reserve. Absolutely. Well, do we want to get to that question here that was posed by D-Lee Crypto?
Wrap it up. I would say what we're going to do here, be very brief. T-Stream, you go, I'll go, and then Caleb will wrap us out. 20 seconds to give your answer. 20 seconds. T-Stream, what are you buying with dry powder?
Oh, man. Right now, probably MicroStrategies. But right now, I'm in wedding expenses season, baby. So the dry powder is looking low, right? So,
yeah.
But MicroStrategies. If you gave me 10 grand right now, I'd probably do MicroStrategies. Honestly, continuing to follow the HBAR story is probably not a bad idea to maybe try to get a little bit more liquidity, a little bit more of an allocation there if that continues to turn out positively. Ondo, I really like that recent purchase. And then just your basics. If you don't have exposure to Ethereum and Chainlink, right? What are you doing?
All right, that was probably about a full minute. We're going to go with my choices. Always going to be buying some more Link. I think there's a level you can't have enough Link. I'm looking at Stacks for sure. Render.
Nice.
Ondo is definitely one. And then once I'm not purchasing yet, but I want to see what other Bitcoin layer 2s emerge. That's also what I'm keeping some dry powder on the side for. Caleb, wrap us out. What are you holding dry powder for? What are you looking to buy here on some of these dips?
So I bought more Bitcoin today in the 64,000 range. I'll certainly be buying more. I don't really have my eye on anything else. I'll take short-term trades on certain things. But in terms of dry powder that I'm looking to invest over the long run, I'm really just focused on Bitcoin right now. Let's talk about stock market really fast. There's 4 funds I want to just mention really quick. One of them is the iShares S&P 500 Core ETF. That's IVV. I will be buying this very soon. I don't think I'm ready yet with any of these names, but it's definitely something I have my eye on. FTech is the Fidelity Information Technology ETF. I will be buying that. MGK is the Vanguard Mega Cap Growth ETF. I'll be buying that as well. And then IUSG is the S&P 500 Growth ETF. So it's basically the S&P 500, but a little bit more growth oriented.
So you're thinking that this pullback from the platinum pocket that's been a short-lived. This is a very viable dip for the S&P growth.
I haven't bought the dip. Well, actually, I did buy some stocks yesterday. Just a little bit, not a significant amount, but no, I did not buy Tesla. And if we get another 5% pullback at the index level, that's when I'm really going to be feeling more confident to buy some of these ETFs. Until then, I'll just kind of have my eye on some of these individual names.
Yeah. This is good stuff. Good stuff. Guys, if you do not already follow Caleb Franzen, what are you doing? Go follow him on X right now. Subscribe to his free newsletter. And if you want even more alpha, go sign up he has different levels. He has a Patreon. He gets some great stuff out there. He has paid versions of his newsletter as well. So go subscribe to everything you can, Caleb Franzen. He'll be back again next week for Caleb Franzen Wednesdays. The rest of you guys will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Smash like, hit subscribe. Oh, we got to do a giveaway tomorrow because we're going to hit 15 by tomorrow, but we have to do a giveaway for 14,000. We got to the end of the show. We got to get out here. So we're doing it tomorrow. Come back. We'll do that giveaway. With that said, Adi.
Os.
Trying to make paper. Turn that better to cake. Money like Lego. Connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor, the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms news, got your word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper. Turn that better to cake. Money like Lego. Connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.